Hey, we are live. This is the Lynn and Sheryl show. Yeah, we are loud and sassy. And today we're going to talk about communicate rather than complicate. Hey, welcome back. And I got some feedback here, so I apologize. Hey, Sheryl, welcome to our show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad we only talked about the topic last night for a few seconds because it kept me up all night thinking there's so much to say about the fact that if you don't say nothing at all.
You think too much.
I know, and that's why I've got you around so that I stop thinking so much.
You think too much and don't figure it out quick enough. And that's part of where the complications come in, Lynn.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've watched you overthink something till you changed your mind and did the 360 and came back to where you were and went back to where you came from. Live in my world comes through mine, it comes out of mouth. Then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Why do you think I wrote a book named Long Story Short, right? Oh, goodness. And that was tough for somebody that overthinks it. So I made sure not to overthink it, not even reread it after I wrote it. So I'm learning this to be different and to take more action than to ponder it and not take any action. So again, I could have saved a lot of time if I would have communicated more and not made complications along the way. And I would hope that people would learn this before they were 55 years old. So, uh,
Well, there's another side to that too. Your open mouth that runs out and then you have to apologize for it. So sometimes that complicates it too. I mean, actually, because then you have to, I never did retract my statements. I'd just smooth them over.
well, it's funny you say that because that's how I used to be. Is I'd just be so pissed off. I'd say whatever, and then I could never come back from it. And I want to say good morning to Scott real quick. Thank you, Scott, for being here. I love you. But that was a problem where I realized, and then I became a peace officer, and I realized that saying the Mirandas enough time and realizing, oh shit, anything you can say will be held against you. And I'm like, I rethought that. It became more.
The main thing, Lynn, is not to argue or even communicate when you're upset. Back off and think about it because I watch people argue so much, and then it's kind of like a river. When the water runs under the bridge, you can't get that back. It's there forever, and all you can do is fix it. So my overrun of my mouth is usually when I'm in a good mood. Rarely will I will just back off if I get real angry. I'm not going to argue because that doesn't get you anywhere.
Right. And that's one thing I would always do is I would reprieve back and hold my tongue or just not go there. But what I realized is that there's no point in talking to anyone that's not even open-minded to hear from your point of view. But again, you got to be the one that be open-minded and see their point of view, because if you try to see it from their point of view, then you can grasp to where they're at. You can adjust yourself to either empathize with them or see it from their side, but come from their side of their tracks and say, okay, I see it that way, but have you ever thought of it this way? And then you won't have the complications. My problem is that after I'd hold my tongue, I'd hold it forever more until I got really pissed off about a lot of other things, and then that's where I complicated things, because it's like, especially in like a relationship with men. I mean, men, if they're, I won't even say that because I a lot of my best friends are men, but I know this for sure. Guys, if you don't talk to them about the subject right that matter, they forget it. They forgive it and forget it, and they let go. They don't hold things like we women do. So that's
I don't hold much. I
yeah.
don't say it right that second.
Yeah. Well, like they say, if something's not working right, you've got to pivot and do something different. And so, I realized a lot of stuff in my life didn't go well, or didn't work well back then. So I've learned to pivot myself, because the only thing we can do is change ourselves and our mentality and not expect much from anybody else. But I think that's why I keep my circle really close. Like, I love everybody. I love to be friends with everybody. But, I don't get into sensitive topics or this or that, because it just, what's the point if you have your mindset and I have my mindset and I can talk to you from your side of the tracks? That's fine. But, you know, when there's not that openness to actually get out of your own way and see it from another viewpoint, I say in those relationships, run, Forrest. Don't stay. There's no point. You're just bantering back to yourself, and that's where a lot of relationships right now are going to pots.
I'm afraid so. And it's a lot of it's just because people, they don't know how to communicate. It's, you've got to think like the other person sometimes, like you say, because, I'm 99.99% right. It's that one little percent that scares me. No, not really. But it's, the thing about it is, and it comes from doing so many behavioral analysis. You've got to look and listen from the other side. And right there's the main point in the complications of communications. You don't listen, you just respond.
And there's a little tip I can give everybody, and I know you know this, Sheryl, but if you listen to someone, they're either audible or visual or whatever. So the way they describe things, and maybe we should have a show on this, is describing how people describe things. You could tell if they actually are a visionary or they're just audible by the words they say. And so the thing is that most of the miscommunication is because you both have different ways of thinking of, and there's nothing wrong being audible or visual. It's just that they see it one way and you hear it another way.
And a lot of it, Lynn, is just in your tone of voice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can say, I won't, and put up the wall. Or you can say, I won't do that.
Right.
And take it softer. A lot of times it's not the words, it's the way you express them. And a lot of it's in your face. I mean, make your face go with your words.
Yeah. And with you saying that, the same thing goes with, no one understands I won't do that without maybe you explaining why you won't do that. And then maybe they can empathize or say, oh my gosh, I did not know that. Just like I think it's Overlander or something movie where there's a lot of sexual rapes and things like that going on, and people are like, but this is a good series. Well, that might be a good series for you, but I won't watch it because I have my own experiences. Not that I'm traumatically whatever with that, but there's no point in putting myself in a trigger position. So when I say, hey, that's just not my kind of stuff, sceneries, I've had experiences, then maybe you can understand why I say, don't ask me to watch that show. So then I didn't complicate anything. I'm just stating that that's not something, to avoid, oh, I just haven't had time. Oh, I'll check it out later, or, whatever. And keeping that conversation going when it's not necessary.
Yeah.
It would be so much easier just saying the reason why not and let it go.
I mean, people can't read minds. That's just the way it is. Open your mouth and let them know. Right. I mean, you and I don't see eye to eye on everything. Thank God. I don't like your world on some of the stuff you do. Sometimes I'm not sure about my world. But the thing about it is, I know where you're coming from. I know your history. Yep. So it makes some of the comments that you make when we're not live seem a little bit easier to take, because I know you're coming from past history.
Right.
The problem is when you're new in a friendship, or you're new in marriage, or you're new in anything else, you don't know that history.
Right.
You need to learn the person before you start making judgment calls.
Absolutely. And that's why I wrote a book. I don't need to say anything. Read the book, you'll figure me out, and we'll be friends. No, but seriously, it is one of those things where, I mean, I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up in Long Island, and all I can say is that my oldest one is 32, and she still doesn't get my sarcastic humor and realize that I'm just bantering and being me.
Yes, we all have that little ink like chalkboard that people have a hard time. I mean, let's put it this way. I have a list of non-carers myself. I think we all do. In fact, I had a man tell me one time, I just don't like you. And my answer to him was, so? Because it didn't matter that he didn't like me because I knew he respected me. I'm more of a brazen woman, the loud and sassy part. I'm more of a brazen woman. The females that he was attracted to were the very calm and
Submissive.
yeah, I'm just looking for a good word there. And the submissive type. And I don't want to be like that. And I don't normally, if you know anything about me, I don't pretend. If you don't like me on Monday, you're not going to like me on Friday either. So, anybody out there in the listening world, if you don't like me, I'll be just like this next week.
But that's okay. That's why we're so different, and yet we complement each other because I know your heart. You can sound like a bitch if you want to, Cheryl. I'm still gonna love you, and I still know your heart.
I'm a nice bitch. Okay. No, I'm really not. I just
No, you're not. But to me, to be called a bitch is a compliment. So
hey, I've worked at it for 70 years and I've got really good at it. Okay.
oh,
But
I love it.
the thing is I can be me. And I actually had a 25-year-old one day. Well, she wasn't 25 at that time. She was a little bit younger than that. She looked at me and said, I want to be just like you when I grow up. And I said, and where does that stupidity come from? She said, well, I know where you stand at any given moment. You're transparent. I don't have to guess where you're at. And so as time moved on, I realized that more and more people saw it that way. No, I might not be the perfect fit, but they know where I'm fitting in at. And I think that's where my communication at times gets me in trouble, but most of the time it keeps me up and above board. And again, I'm very transparent. I mean, I don't have this pretty office back here. I have a green screen. Not that my office isn't nice, but I'm transparent about that. I leave it fuzzy enough that you can tell. It's how you deal with it. Don't complicate the world. It's complicated enough. And the only thing you have control over is the box that you're in and the people that are around you. So work with what you got. I mean,
You see, I am a visual person because when you say it's the box you're in, I'm like, damn, that's why I'm so heavy. I like my big box.
we both have big boxes, okay? And I don't work with my box all the time. I'm pretty much, I'm one of the boxes somewhere else, and I'm walking around it because I've never been conformative as it goes. I've kind of dredged my own path. You know my history. I have dredged my own path as a female since I was in my early 20s. And it's so, I don't know how to give that up. I kind of liked me doing that.
No, that's good. I mean, shoot, you're a Southern girl, but I think you would have lived in Long Island real well. You would have you fit anywhere. That's for sure.
I had a teacher tell me one day I could talk to God or the devil, and it probably wouldn't make any difference. So yeah, I could live about anywhere.
Well, we're not here to change anybody's the way you do things or the way you think, but we're here to remind you that things can get complicated by not at least articulating what you're trying to say the best way you can to delay things that will cause you more shit in the future, pretty much. And so, and I'll tell you what, I'm gonna have to do my own little stint today and talk about communication. I mean it because I was one of those girls that were just I'd rather just be quiet and not talk about it because it was too pent up. And it did me more harm than it did anybody else any good. So again, treat people like the way you want to be treated, and know that don't complicate things. Just communicate the best you can, because everyone's going to have their own perspective by what you say, and their own interpretation of no matter what you do say. So I think it's really important to say that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you say it, but know that you want to make sure they understand what you're trying to say, you know? And so I want to thank Helen and Scott for being here live. And I think we ran out of time for right now. Sheryl, anything in closing?
I do. I want to add one thing, and this is my little tidbit for today. If you can't say it, get a journal and write it in it. Get it out of your system. Sometimes just putting it on paper, it'll pull it out of you. You don't have to say it to the person, but or type a letter. Just don't send it.
Don't do an email format where you accidentally send and think end, or yeah, because that's just as bad as some text messages, let me tell you. Anyhow, enough said for now. You guys have a great day, and we will see you next week.